Good morning, students. Welcome to this morning's contact-based session for Educational Foundations. I'm Ms. Isabel Besaidenout. I'm going to take you through some of the most important content of this module. First of all, in Unit 1, I'd like to concentrate on comparative education. With comparative education, we mean the comparative study of educational theories and practices in various countries. In addition, the attempts to use cross-national data to test propositions about the relationship between education and society, as well as between teaching practices and learning outcomes. Furthermore, it considers the implications of comparative studies for the formation and implementation of policies in educational, social, national, as well as international development. It also invites contributions from associated disciplines in the fields of government, management, sociology, and technology and communications, which affect educational research and policy decisions. The next topic that we want to look at as well is the evolution of comparative education. Here I would like you to concentrate on the different phases in the evolution of education and also be familiar with all the characteristics and the main developments in each phase. They are, first of all, a phase of traveller's tales, systematic data collection for borrowing. In the third place, international cooperation. The fourth place, a hermeneutic phase. Fifth was the social science phase. Then the sixth phase, it was the phase of heterodoxy. And the last phase is known as a phase of heterogeneity. Please make sure that you do refer to it in your guide and that you familiarize yourself with each of these phases. Next of all, a topic that is of particular importance is what should we consider when we look at homeschooling for our child. It is a topic that is especially valid in this day and age. First of all, we need to look at the socialization of the child. Does the child develop the skills to socialize if he or she is homeschooled? Second of all is the question of curriculum. There are so many different curriculums, it can be overwhelming for a parent to make a decision on which program and method to choose, so that the parent can feel totally confused or scared to consider homeschooling. In the third place, the parent should think of over and under scheduling. You still need a schedule or a timetable even if you school your child at home. Sometimes parents try to do too much in one day, while it might be that others don't try to do enough in the course of a day. Furthermore, there might be the issue of unrealistic expectations. Some parents expect too much of a child, while others are not sure what the ability of the child is and might not expect enough. Then we have to look at the question of being organized. Even though the child is taught at home, it still needs to be a very organized environment. Everything must have a place, and you shouldn't have to start looking for something, as that will just be a big waste of time and energy. We also need to consider the breaks that a child needs. Each child needs regular breaks so that they can take in what they need to learn. No child can concentrate for long hours without a break. Therefore, the parent must consider breaks, perhaps that are similar to those they have in school, in a school day. Next, it's very challenging for a parent to do it alone. Now you have the role as being the parent and the teacher. It takes a lot of commitment, patience, as well as planning. Then we need to look at everything is now done at home. So you might need to make an effort to get out of the house and into a different surrounding with your child as well. In the second last place, parents should consider the input of the child. You need to listen to your child as well. Sometimes a parent needs to know when to be more lenient, and other times when he or she should be stricter. Then in the last place, internet is in our country especially a big challenge. It's nearly impossible to do homeschooling without it. If you do not have access or you are unsure of how to use the internet, it might be something that one should not consider. The internet should be viewed in different ways, and parents should also consider whether they are too strict about it or too laid back about the way their child uses the internet. Next, we move over to Unit 2. Here I would like to focus on outcome-based education, especially according to one of the 21st century thinkers, William Spady, who especially had a big influence in the history of education. What is meant by outcome-based education? It is a means of organizing for results, basing what we do instructionally on the outcomes we want to achieve. So what the practitioner does here is he or she determines the knowledge, the competencies and the qualities they want the student to be able to demonstrate when they finish school and face the challenges of the adult world. Then they design a curricular and instructional system that they believe will produce these exit outcomes. It's important to know that OBE is not specifically a program, but rather a way of designing, developing, delivering, and documenting instruction in terms of its intended goals. When we look at outcome-based education, there are two concepts that we must also see in relation to that, and that is the competency-based education as well as mastery learning. Now, if we look at the concept competency-based education, it is important to know that it's a general term that's applied to instructional and assessment efforts, and it's aimed at defining and evaluating student performance. When we look at mastery learning, this is a form of individualized instruction in which students are allowed the necessary time to master each unit of a curriculum before they proceed to the next unit. It also involves organizing instruction, providing students with regular feedback on their learning progress, and giving them guidance and direction to help them to correct their individual learning difficulties. And last of all, also to provide them with extra challenges if they have already mastered the material. Now we come to another educational figure, that is an African thinker who played a big role in the history of education, and that is Julius Nyerere. And I especially here want to focus on his view of adult education and lifelong learning. Now, he saw adult education as helping people to help themselves and for it to be approached as part of life, integrated with life as well as inseparable from life. For Julius Nyerere, education had two functions: to inspire both a desire for change and an understanding that change is possible, and also to help people make their own decisions and implement these decisions for themselves. His view of adult education stretched much further than the classroom. He saw it as anything that enlarges men's understanding, activates them, could help them to make their own decisions and to implement those decisions for themselves. It also included agitation and organization and mobilization. He believed that there were two types of educators that were involved in education. First of all, there were the generalists, which were the community development workers, the political activists, and religious teachers who are not politically neutral. And these people affected how people look at society, the society in which they live, and how they seek to use it or change it. Then he also said that there were the specialists. Those were the educationalists who were concerned with health, agriculture, childcare management, as well as literacy. For him, adult education did not have a beginning or an end. Living is learning, and learning is about trying to live better. Furthermore, in terms of method, two aspects stood out. Educators do not give something they possess to another. No, they help learners to develop their own potential and capacity. Those that the educators work with have experience and knowledge about the subject they are interested in, although they still might not realize it. Drawing on the things that the student or the learner already knows and showing their relevance to the new thing that has to be learned, the teacher does three things, according to Nyerere. He builds up the self-confidence of the man who wants to learn by showing him or her what he is capable of contributing. Secondly, he demonstrates the relevance of experience and observation as a method of learning when combined with thought and analysis. And in the last place, he shows what might be called a mutuality of learning. That is, that by sharing knowledge, we extend the totality of our understanding and our control over our lives. In the next place, when we move to Unit 3, of specific significance is the professional freedom of educators or teachers in this case. What should we keep in mind if we think of our own professional freedom? The teaching profession should enjoy academic freedom in the discharge of professional duties. Teachers are qualified to judge the teaching aids and methods that are most suitable for their pupils, within a framework of approved programs and with the assistance of the educational authorities. Furthermore, teachers and organizations should participate in the development of new courses, textbooks, and teaching aids. Systems of inspection or supervision should be designed as such that it encourages and helps teachers in their performance of their professional tasks. And these inspections and supervisions should not be to diminish the freedom, the initiative, and the responsibility of the teachers. In addition, direct assessment of teachers' work should be objective and should be made known to teachers. If there is something that is seen as unjustified by a teacher, he or she should have the right to appeal against assessments. Teachers should also be free to make use of evaluation techniques that they deem fit for the appraisal of pupils' progress. When it comes to the authorities, due weight must be given to the recommendation of teachers regarding the suitability of individual pupils for courses and further education. Also, every possible effort should be made to promote close cooperation between teachers and parents in the interest of the pupils. That being said, teachers should also be protected against unfair or unwanted interference by parents in matters which are essentially the teacher's professional responsibility. Then we come to complaints that might come from parents against a school or against a teacher. There should be opportunities for discussion in the first instance with the school principal if there's a teacher concerned. Any complaint which might be addressed to a higher authority should be in writing, and a copy should always be applied to the teacher. If there's investigation of complaints, teachers should be given a fair opportunity to defend themselves, and no publicity should be given to proceedings. In the last place, while teachers should exercise the utmost care to avoid accidents to pupils, employers of teachers should safeguard them against the risk of having damages assessed against them in the event of the injury to pupils. This brings us to Unit 4, and especially to have a look at the factors that we need to take in consideration if we want to understand Namibia's current socio-economic problems. And the first factor is the colonial history of Namibia. We know that South Africa occupied the German colony of Southwest Africa during World War I, and it was administered as a mandate until after World War II. In 1966, the Southwest Africa People's Organization, SWAPO as we know it, launched a war of independence for the area that was soon to be named Namibia. In 1988, South Africa agreed to end its administration in accordance with a UN peace plan for the entire region. And then in 1990, following a multi-party election, Namibia gained independence, and we know that our first president was President Sam Nujoma, our founding father, became president on the 21st of March 1919 and served as president up to the 21st of March 2005, after which he handed over to President Hifikepunye Pohamba, who was sworn in on the 21st of March 2005. Another very important factor is the geography of Namibia. Namibia is located in the southwestern part of Africa, bordering the South Atlantic Ocean, Angola in the north, Zambia in the northeast, Botswana in the east, and South Africa in the south. Our geographic coordinates are 22 degrees south and 17 degrees east. The country covers an area of 825,418 square kilometers. It has a desert climate and is generally hot and dry with sparse and erratic rainfall. These factors, of course, you need to consider in relation to the role it plays in the socio-economic factors in Namibia. When we look at the population, which is the last factor I want you to consider, if we look at the 2004 population estimates, Namibia had a population of 1.954 million people, approximately. The estimates taken took in consideration the effects of mortality due to HIV and AIDS, which can result in a lower life expectancy. It also looked at the higher infant mortality and death rate and the lower population growth rates, as well as the distribution of population by age and sex. According to the 2004 studies, the population growth was estimated at 1.25% per year. Over the last 10 years, or at the time that the book went to print, the population grew at an average of 1.5% per year. It grew from 1.8 million people in 2001 to 2.1 million in 2011. This was actually 4% lower than what that was expected. But according to the NPC director, he considers the growth to be good as well as manageable in comparison to the country's economic growth, which has averaged 4.7% over the past decade. Unit 5. That I want you to go and do some serious self-study and focus on the pre-primary as well as the lower primary phases in Namibia, specifically looking at what the correlation between the two are. If we look at the learning outcomes for the pre-primary phase as well as the lower primary phase, considering the languages, mathematics, environmental studies, arts, as well as physical education, how do they differ or how do they complement one another? In Unit 6, I'm going to focus more specifically now on society features and issues and Namibia's educational system. In other words, how do these influence one another? We know that if we look at social goals, broad access and equity, they are best addressed through general education. Education is an effective vehicle to ensure that important social messages, for instance about HIV and AIDS information, are learned. In secondary education, there are many positive externalities such as improved health, reduced infant mortality, better family planning, HIV and AIDS prevention, as well as enhanced social participation that can be brought about. We focus on giving especially girls more and better secondary education, as it directly can contribute to the empowerment of women in Namibia. We also see that better quality education increases the average earnings and productivity and can reduce the likelihood of social problems that are harmful to economic development. That being said, something that we need to consider is that many of the children in Namibia have been victims or are victims of war, poverty, overcrowded housing, inadequate food supply, polluted water, lack of sanitary facilities, and isolation. We also find that in many areas children suffer from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, acute respiratory infections, measles, and other preventable diseases. It is quite shocking to know that we are one of the wealthiest countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but our malnutrition level is 29%, which is only slightly lower than the average for the whole region. Namibia has the highest malnutrition level for any country in the world among the 83 countries whose GNP per capita income is higher than $1,000. A household health and nutrition survey conducted by UNICEF in the Northwest region and Katatura found a high to moderate malnutrition rate of 30% and a severe malnutrition rate of 6.8%. And needless to say, here education has a very large role to play. The main influence of the situation can be changed through our educational system by having effect on the curriculum revision, looking at our school curricula, revising it and strengthening it so that cross-curricular themes include HIV/AIDS and health education, human rights and democracy, environmental education, information communication technologies, as well as entrepreneurial skills and development. We should also aim to encourage the acquisition of literacy, numeracy, and life skills, which are specifically emphasized in the lower primary level, and the curriculum has as such been streamlined to reflect that the senior secondary level emphasizes the localization of the HIGCSE curriculum in order to ensure more relevance and local application. When it comes to teacher education curricula, which is offered by the Colleges of Education and the University of Namibia, it will be revised once the revision for the formal school system has been done. This is done to ensure that teacher education curricula is aligned and responsive to the needs and requirements of the school curricula. That brings us to the end of the session. I focused on some of the most important points in each and every unit, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't concentrate on the other aspects of this module. I need to leave you with something very important, and that concerns the action verbs that are used in questions, both in assignments as well as in the examination. In the beginning of your study guide or in the front of your study guide before they start with the actual study content, you will see that there are different action verbs and that they are explained to you. And they are important because they involve the thinking processes in each case. The table of verbs that are used in the assignment and the examination provides examples of the thinking involved in each verb. And you need to answer accordingly. You cannot just always reproduce the knowledge that you have memorized. It is very important for you to be able to analyze, to apply what you have learned, also to be able to evaluate and to critically discuss the information that you dealt with. Therefore, see section 7 in the beginning of your study guide to make sure that you are familiar with each of these. Then I would like to encourage you to contact me should you have any problem when you prepare for the examination or when you are busy doing your assignment. You are very, very welcome to SMS me. Just SMS EF21 and I will phone you back. You can also email me at the following email address and I will answer you as soon as possible. Or if you request that I phone you, I can phone you back and we can talk and discuss whatever the problem might be in a time that's suitable for both of us. Thank you very much, students. I wish you all the best of luck. Goodbye.